Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. And today I'm talking about Slay the Spire, the board game adaptation of the popular rogue-lite deck building video game. And no disclaimer for this one, Peter backed the game and I borrowed his copy. In Slay the Spire, you and up to 3 other players are going on runs where you'll take your characters through this little track, facing different enemies and bonuses as you go, in an effort to reach a random boss for the act. And if you can get through all 2 or 3 or 4 acts, however far you're trying to get, then you win the game. Each player controls one of 4 unique classes, each with unique starting cards and unique upgrade decks. This is a deck builder, and you're generally getting 1 new card after each battle. And the players will face different types and groups of enemies in an effort to stay alive and grow strong enough to beat the entire Spire. So let's get right to it and discuss 5 things about Slay the Spire. So first, my number 5 point, which is a full-on con for my taste, is that this is a almost direct adaptation of the video game. Like, the game is almost identical, except they changed some values, slightly changed how enemies activate in some cases. But once I played the board game, I went back and played the video game some more, and I got sucked in and played it a ton, and I really didn't see much reason to go back and play the board game for solo specifically. But the board game is the only thing that has cooperative, and it is still a great version of the game if you don't have access to video games or if you don't prefer to play things there. But yes, if you're mainly going to play this solo and you already have a video game system or like playing things on your phone, I'm not sure that this is ever going to beat the original video game. My number 4 point, which is a bit of a mix, is the run nature of the game itself. So this is a roguelite. If you don't know that term, you're supposed to be going through a single run and leveling up, but often dying and having to start over. And there is some inherent repetitiveness and grindiness there, and while they have a lot of different enemies, it's not that many, and you are going to kind of start seeing the same people over and over again as you play more. Now, they do have a whole bunch of achievements and challenges and things you can do to unlock more cards or get more challenging gameplay. And I think these are great options, very similar to the video game and pretty exciting. But for my taste personally, they also feel a bit grindy, especially once you've unlocked all of these cards. The rest is just kind of options for masochists who want to make the game really tough. So yeah, it's not entirely to my taste, but I am happy they included this kind of thing in the game. My number 3 point, which is a full-on pro, is the enemy variety in the game. So each act has its own enemies. These are straight out of the video game, and they activate in really fun different ways. Some of them have a sort of countdown track so you know what's coming in future rounds. Others of them roll a die, and it applies to every enemy and also applies to a lot of your like items and relics. But again, it gives you some predictability at the beginning of a round for what you might need to do. And some enemies come in with a huge posse, but they're all a little bit weaker. Some of them are single baddies with a ton of health, so the differences there are going to make the strategy feel very different and make your deck play differently. And what's especially great with the enemies is when you're playing co-op, because you can kind of mitigate the bad luck of potentially drawing the wrong enemies or rolling the wrong thing at sometimes. You can attack each other's enemies and sometimes block for each other, and it leads to a lot of great discussion of like, okay, we need to take this person out this turn because they're going to kill this guy. Oh man, we can wait on my guy. They're not that bad this turn. Lots of really interesting table talk and play in this one. My number 2 point for the game, which is also generally a full pro, is the card play, and specifically the energy cost usage. So this is one of those deck builders akin to Imperium, where you have a limitation on how many cards you can play. You don't just plop down your entire hand. And based on what your enemies are doing that turn, based on what combos you've drawn into, there are really interesting choices in how you play out that energy. Now, your entire hand does get discarded at the end of every round, so there is certainly a good amount of luck here. Combined with the enemy activation, sometimes you'll draw no defense on the turn the enemy's hitting you really hard, or draw a ton of defense on the turn they're not even attacking, so there can be some frustrations there. But besides that, the cool choices of how to play your cards, especially once you've grown into some more interesting combos, can just be awesome. And speaking of combos, that goes right into my number 1, a big pro, and that is the variety in characters and builds. So first of all, you've got 4 different classes, and they each have an entire giant stack of cards that are all their own, so everyone's plays very differently. But then even within a given class, the cards you draw as you level up are going to be very different game to game, and each class has multiple builds and card combos you can go for to try to go all the way in your run. And when you combine those builds with the relics and potions and other items you can get, the possibilities are maybe not endless, but certainly very exciting and fun to explore. Now, the one negative here is, again, randomness, kind of like my last point. Sometimes you just aren't drawing cards that go together, and you keep on getting like mixes of things that are for different builds, and your character just sucks, and your run ends early because you never really got any strength. That can be a little bit annoying, but in pretty much all of my plays, I found at least some strength in my character, and even if I didn't get all the way to the final act, it still felt fun to play through and build myself up. So overall, if you are looking for an awesome deck building game with a lot of fun variety and how you can build your classes and build out your deck and really exciting combat with really cool enemy activations, Slay the Spire is an awesome buy. I can pretty much recommend it to any fan of deck builders and tactical combat games, unless, again, you're going to mainly play it solo and you also play video games, because then I would just say go download the app or the video game and play that. It's better and cheaper. And if you want to see the game in action, I have a playthrough on the channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.